Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Consciousness. I'm your host, Christine Madera. For me, and possibly for you, the inner world of consciousness has always been much more real and way more fun than the so-called real material world. Growing up, I thought I was alone in this, but I'm not. There are a lot of us, and far too many have no one to talk to who shares this experience. I've been lucky to cultivate a community of friends who love to talk about the energies, ideas, and vibrations that are pushing the edges of our own consciousness, as well as our collective consciousness. In Conversations from the Edge, we share our conversations with you. Welcome to Conversations from the Edge. This is your host, Christine Madera, and we are here today with Katie Kiefer. So thank you for being here, Katie. It's always so much fun to talk with you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love doing this. This is fun.
All right, so you're always doing all kinds of interesting things. So how would you like to introduce yourself today about like what it is that you're doing in this crazy time that we have right now of this amazing change that is afoot?
I've mostly been doing my own work and learning some new tools and definitely applying them. And it's been so awesome because, so many of us are really good at shifting our mental and emotional and spiritual states, but we haven't been as effective with shifting the physical vibration. And it's, and I started going into some of this because I'm like, okay, it's there. It's in the non-physical. How do I get it to the physical? Where is it? I'm like, what is going on? And it's been the physical body. And so there's a lot of nonverbal things that go on. And, those energies get stuck and kind of hijack us. So even though it's in the non-physical, we have too much noise to let it come in through the physical body. And so that's really what I've been doing for myself lately. And as soon as possible, we'll be doing with clients as well. And it's just really, really interesting stuff. And it really has to do with clearing away the old belief systems, clearing somatically the energies from the body, and just opening the way so you can live the life that you want and truly express your sacred self and have it reflected back to you in a way that's really joyful in your life. That's what I'm going for.
Well, that sounds terrific. And it's a perfect time to do that. We were talking before we started recording that for both of us and for other people that I know and probably other people that you know, this time that we are in where this, we've got this coronavirus going on, there's economic issues going on, that since about the third week in February, it's felt much more still. It's begun to become stiller. And for me, and we're talking about this, the vibrations, like the vibrations have started slowing down. And I guess that's not the right term. The noise has begun to drop down and it's getting very energetically quiet.
Yes.
And so we were talking about this like as a form of Earth retrograde. And so, and which feels so true. Like there's this time that we're taking out of time on this planet because, we're in the middle of this unprecedented, at least in modern times, focus that we have on this, on everything that's unfolding now. So can you talk a little bit about retrograde? Because you're much more attuned to that than I am.
And I'm not an astrologer, but I have followed astrology for a little while, and I've been kind of off and on for a long time, actually. I've got a few friends who are astrologers. My understanding of retrograde, it's like a review period. So retrograde, and we never hear of Earth retrograde. And the reason for that is because, the planets are never actually moving backwards. They just appear that way visually from our perspective on Earth. So that's why we call it retrograde. But energetically, it's like this review period. So it'll go back over whatever it had just come through, and then it'll move forward again. And it's like, it's a time to really reflect and on whatever that is. And somewhere within your being, you're probably going to do that anyway, because there's retrogrades that we don't even know about. Yeah. Like there was one I could be wrong, but I want to say it was maybe Chiron was retrograde like all last
Mm-hmm.
year.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I had no idea. And if somebody said it, I missed it. So like we may have been reviewing all of that stuff somehow, somewhere, whether we were conscious of it or not. And now that it's coming direct again, it's like we get to come forward refreshed and renewed, and we get to apply the new perspectives differently. We're not necessarily getting do-overs, though
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we do. Sometimes we do get do-overs, but not always. But we get to move forward from that fresh perspective. It's like we get to reassess things. And that's
Well,
really my understanding of retrogrades.
so it actually fits really well with the Aries New Moon. It's just like I pay attention to the new moons
Uh-huh.
and the full moons, but the Aries New Moon is also a time of starting a new 35-year cycle. So, looking back at the last 35 years, and if you're under 35 years old, that's looking back at your entire life. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
different perspective. But looking at how you have lived and how your life has been and what you've been focused on, what you've done that you've liked, what you've done that you haven't, how you would like to remake yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and coming into this new 35-year cycle as a new being in a new way. And you can't do that overnight. And so maybe all of these things are working together that to give us
Mm-hmm.
this time of reflection and this very quiet energy of earth for as long as this may last. And it may last for several months or even a year or more, depending on
Mm-hmm.
how things play themselves out. But this time of really being in a state of reevaluating how you live your life, who you are in the world, and how you want to be that. And I think it's a time to actually not even quite start thinking about those things, because it seems to me, this is a whole turning point for all of Earth at one time. We're all facing the same problems and issues at the same time. We've got a virus and we've got economic issues with the virus, and we also then have climate change. So there's all of
Mm-hmm.
these things happening at one time that really need like some systemic changes in order to move forward without causing, catastrophe.
Yeah.
And so I think that who we are becoming, what is emerging in us and what is emerging on our planet and what is coming through as we move forward is not apparent yet. It's a time to kind of sit and reflect and allow what's emerging on the planet and through us to actually come up without interfering with it, with our conscious mind, our personality, our ego, trying to find certainty or trying to make plans, because they're not going to work out anyway, because we don't know what's going to happen next. It's a great time to be alive.
Yeah. It really is. And I
Oh, it
think
is.
this feels so spot on. It's like we've never been here before, individually or collectively.
Mm-hmm.
We are really moving into a new way of being. And there's so much more that we have access to now that we've never had access to before, or not really, especially collectively, had access to energetically, individually, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much we have access to that we've not had in most of human history, if not all of human history. There's a piece here that it's like, this feels like a big inhale
Mm-hmm.
before this expansion. And it feels like it'll be really gentle. At least that's how
Mm-hmm.
it feels to me.
Me too.
But there's like we're getting ready for this massive expansion. We don't know what it's going to look like on the other side.
No. And I think the point about being gentle is, everybody has a choice in this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've just lost your job, if your significant other is in the hospital with coronavirus, all these things can feel really immediate and urgent and not gentle at all.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so, but I do think that gentleness is available, and it's part of the what we can actually tap into now, because as we were talking about before we started recording, as fear rises, the pendulum swings wider.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have all of these new possibilities, these new ways of being and these new energies available to us that we haven't before, these new levels of awareness, these new kinds of universal truths, these new ways of seeing ourselves and seeing the world and of being in relationship with one another that have not been part of humanity's consciousness, at least widespread, for a very long time, if at all. And so as these are available, I think part of the practice here is to take that deep inhale and relax in that exhale and allow life to support you in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's available for everybody, but our default tends to be, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. How am I going to make the rent? How, of taking or of being in this place of personality or of ego and of trying to solve your problems from personality and from ego, which only can see the past and can only really operate out of fear and does not have the capacity to open to expansion and possibility and this kind of grace that is available if we are able to receive it. And I think that's one of the great lessons in this pause is how do we begin to receive the grace here instead of just seeing the stress and the anxiety and the trauma and the problems.
That's very good. Yeah. Because, I feel like we're on the edge
Mm-hmm.
of a massive shift. And it's like with this new moon, this new moon, it's like, not that the new moon is creating anything, but it's more like a marker in time
Mm-hmm.
of it's time to do things differently and to be different. And so one of the biggest things that has surfaced, and we've talked about the difference between consciousness and awareness, or thought and awareness. It was thought and
Mm-hmm.
awareness, so we talked about. But if we come into a lot of times there's this concept of awareness and consciousness being equal, and they're not. And that's become more and more clear to me lately.
Okay,
And
so talk
so
about that. Explain that a little bit.
awareness is, we have this awareness of what's happening. We
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily have choice or control over it.
Mm-hmm.
When we have true consciousness, we are at choice. And so really, I would say a lot of us have a lot of mental and emotional consciousness because we are at choice. We can choose what we think, we can choose how we feel, and we can shift it. Even
Mm-hmm.
if it's a little bit of work, we know that we have choice and we can actually make it different. And I think that's kind of where we're coming up to collectively. And so it's even, and I know there's people who have it really hard. I think I've been blessed
Mm-hmm.
with the situation. My son's still working, my husband's still working, he's working from home. I still have things going on. But I know it's not that way for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And even if there's like plenty of money in the bank to manage to get through for a couple of months, it's still really stressful for people. And
Yes.
so if for those in those situations, I would really invite them to where do you have choice over how you feel? Where do you have choice over where you think? What's accessible to you now that you can shift? Because that's going to make a difference. And it's going to make a
And
difference in your physiology.
And to do that from a place of awareness versus doing that from a place of personality. And I
Yes.
think that's because personality is always looking for the options that are apparent or that are more used to or that are familiar. And
Right.
awareness opens you up to, and I think we have a little bit of difference in vocabulary, so we'll just put it out there that these energies are available however you vocabulary them, but that awareness is that place that opens you up to all possibilities and
Yes.
allows you to access awareness of other options that are not available to you when
Mm-hmm.
you're in that the state of personality and the state of fear. And or even if you don't think you're in fear, if you're operating from personality and from from ego, from trying to be in charge, from trying to, make it work, from efforting through this and trying this and all of that. Like those are all energies of personality and energies of ego, which are not bad. It's just they're not effective for creating in the unknown and for
Right.
being at that very edge of the total unknown and being okay with that. And I had this really interesting, I'm not going to go through the whole thing of it, but I had another one of those teaching dream things. And I talked about this with Miche at one point. I had one about dimensional travel. And this one was really about time. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing about time, but there was a couple of really key points in here that made so much sense for where we are now. And one was that when I was in this playing teaching state, I saw how we create time, and I felt how we create time in the body, and in our I don't even know what it is, but in our experience, I guess. So that if we're in this place of in this dimensional awareness, whatever it happens to be, we're in that state, and then time extends backward and forward from there, so that it has a trajectory, it has a past. But you can actually be in that if you're totally in the state of presence and being very present, and you can kind of bless time or bless your past and bring everything into the present moment, not just with awareness and not just with your attention, but with your energy. So it's about bringing your energy from the past into the present, which automatically brings the energy that you're projecting out into the future into the present, because when there is no past, there is no future, there is only now. And so when you are energetically in the now, what it was this huge big energy. And I was like, oh, this is why people like stay in the past and the present, because the energy of now, the presence of having all of your energy in the now, is big energy. However, so when I was sitting there in this big energy, I had this awareness, and it was really kind of uncomfortable big energy. I had to really sit with it and allow my body and my being to be okay in that, because it was bigger energy than I was used to. And then I was kind of playing with, well, I can see why it's so scary to be around people who are totally, who are big energetic beings and have all of their energy in the present, because it's overwhelming. So being in that state, I had to acclimate a little bit to that. But I got to really become aware that when I was in that place of this presence where everything was in the present moment and there was nothing really happening, it was just completely in the now. Of course, I was laying in bed, so I was in the now in bed, but I was in this teaching space. What I realized is everything slowed down. Like in the now, everything was very slow. Everything was happening at one time. That's why it felt so like it was so big energy, because it was everything that was happening at one time in the now. And when you stretch it into time, then everything happens sequentially, and it takes some of the energy out of the now and stretches it forward, stretches it back. And we only experience what's happening in the moment. But when everything was energetically in the now, everything was happening in the now. It was really kind of this crazy thing. I'd have to deconstruct it at some point. But everything was also, while it was happening at one time, everything was energetically slow, in the sense that it wasn't scattered anywhere. It was all focused in this one moment of now, even if everything was happening in the now. And I had the awareness then that this pause that we're in, this time of quietness, was a time to kind of be in that energy of the now, because we don't know what the future is. The past is now irrelevant, because we can't go backward. What had worked in the past isn't going to work. So we can't do it. Even if you think you can, it's only been a couple of months. It's energetically, we live way beyond that. And so the past is irrelevant. The future is not yet something that we can envision, because we are in the midst of this radical change. So holding our energy in the now, bringing the past and the future into this now, and coming into this quietness and this pause, we're able to really begin to connect with the energy of the earth which is speeding up, like the vibrations of the earth are
Mm-hmm.
speeding up. The resonance of the earth, we can measure this, is speeding up. And we've been so fast in our life that we haven't been able to come into the place where we're able to really catch up with the resonance. And so when I was in that state, I'm like, oh, so I need to spend time in this state every day, just kind of coming into harmony with Earth's rising energies, so that when we come out of this retrograde, as we're calling it, like I'm in sync. And whatever it is that I'm doing then, like I'm totally in sync with being in the now, and letting life live me in the now. But there's, right now it's just the gathering energy time. It's the time to practice totally being in the now. And so that was a long way of saying um, something. I'm not sure what. I don't know what got me off on that, but
I
it
don't
was,
know, but that's, yeah, I kind of meandered a little bit myself, but that was like, oh my God. So,
yeah.
can you walk us through
Hmm.
a process of some sort to help us um, acclimate and synchronize with the earth? Because I mean, so many of us, I think we've done it on a lot of levels, but you work really, really well with the body.
Hmm. Okay.
So can you help us with that?
All right. So I'm not a theta healer. It's like I do everything just basically through guided imagery and just offering up the resonance in the energies. So,
That's
um,
plenty. That's
all right.
plenty, plenty.
So, so if you're listening to this and you're driving, don't close your eyes. And you might want to do this later. But everybody else, you can close your eyes and just be in a place where you can be undisturbed, if at all possible. Close your eyes, sit, lay down, whatever it is, and just relax into the breath. And as you inhale all the way down into the deep diaphragm. It's that muscle beneath the lungs that draws your breath downward. And as you exhale, just roll the breath out. And these long, slow, deep breaths begin to slow the body, slow the mind, and move you into that place of receptivity, away from personality toward this state of awareness. So just continue breathing all the way down into the deep diaphragm and all the way out. And imagine that you're standing in your life as you. But you're standing in your life as you, as a magical being, because you are totally capable of embodying the fullness of you. And you're in this fullness of you now, in the time of right this moment. And as you ponder the past, you realize that the past is done. And thank the past. Bless it. Become aware, even if it's not consciously, but just know that energetically you are aware of all of the wisdom that the past has gifted you. And imagine, just like you would kind of a fishing reel, reel in the past. So you're bringing all of the past blessings and wisdom into the present, leaving behind all of those things that are no longer supportive of you, no longer relevant in your life. And notice as you do that, that all of the dreams and the hopes and the vision that you had for your life, even just a few months ago, may not be as applicable or as immediate or as urgent. And just imagine that reeling in at the same time, bringing all of the energy that you have projected into the present into your body in this moment. So bringing everything that you are into this moment and feel the fullness of you as best you can. And notice and feel the power and the strength and the energy that comes with being in your full presence in this moment, in the now. And notice how there is no past and no future in this now. There is only now. And as you take a long, slow, deep breath in and you exhale, let that be okay as best you can. Being in the immediacy and also the uncertainty of the now. And imagine then that your feet are standing on the earth and they are radiating down like with roots down into the middle of the earth, connecting with Mother Earth, who is her own goddess, who is also speeding up and becoming a greater being at this time. And begin to notice yourself vibrating with the energy of the earth, coming into resonance with the energy of the earth. And allowing yourself to speed your energy up or to release your hold on your energy and allow the earth's energy to guide you as you come into harmony with the earth. And as you go through your days and your weeks and your months, as we move forward from this moment of now into every new moment of now, see how much you can stay in this presence and allow the moment of now to guide you into the next moment of now in a place of peace, of harmony, of resonance, of support, of grace, of gentleness, of knowing that the earth is here to support and sustain you. The energies are all here to support and sustain you as we all move forward together. That grace is available. And that when it becomes time to move into the new era that we're creating, this new reality, this new way of being, that the practice of staying in this moment, of allowing these energies to flow through you and lead you, is the exact skill set of being able to create your life and our collective experience in what's next. So appreciate yourself and appreciate all of the energies of the earth and the universe and the center of the galaxy and all these places and all of your angels, all of your guides, all of the energies you call upon that are supporting you in this time. Knowing that in times of great change, there is even greater support. Take one more long, slow, deep breath all the way in. And as you exhale, then just feel free when you're ready to open your eyes and come back to this moment of now. Fully present, fully embodied.
Oh, that's nice.
Oof.
That is so nice. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I need to do more meditations. I haven't done those for other people for a while, so I shouldn't say need. I would like to do more of that. They make me happy. So look for those at some point. Oh, there was one thing that I didn't say about time that I actually really would like to say when I was in that experience, is that it really became clear to me that time was actually for our pleasure. And I had this, this awareness when I was in the total present that eating an ice cream cone would be, if there was no time and everything was immediate, like we always want to create something right this second. But if we had an ice cream cone and we created having it and eating it in the same moment, like there's no satisfaction there. It's an experience that lasts for a blip. But if we have an ice cream cone, as we enjoy it, and I can feel time expanding in enjoyment, like when we're in that place of peace and enjoyment, that's what time is. Like that's one of the functions of time, is to support our pleasure. And the interesting thing about it is when we are in that kind of pleasure, we don't experience time. And so that's a little magical koan that I can't really talk anymore about except it was really profound to experience that, like how much time is a real gift, and how when you're really in the gift of time, there is no time, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense to me.
Okay.
It does. And it's one of those non-verbal, I get it.
Okay, good. Because I can't explain it anymore. But at the time I was like, oh, it's like 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just this amazing awareness. And so often those things, they're like these energetic packets of awareness that it takes a long time to be able to talk about coherently. So I'm glad
I
you get it.
understand.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Whew. All right. So why don't you tell people how they can reach you, and then we might just jump into another conversation in just a couple minutes.
Okay. The best way to reach me is through my website and the little pop-up, then drop me a message. And the website is awakentheinnerlight.com. You can also do the same thing over at coffeewiththeangels.com. Both of those will get you to the same little pop-up.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for this conversation. We always have such good talks.
We do. And thank you for the meditation. That was absolutely wonderful.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. All right,
So
that was
wonderful.
kind of this crazy spontaneous thing. All right, well, thank you, and we will talk again in just a moment.
All right, thanks.
This is your host, Christine Madera. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation from the edge of consciousness. You can find all our conversations at conversationsfromtheedge.net. You'll also find links to schedule a private conversation with me or any of my friends, as well as tools to help you expand your own consciousness and explore what's possible for you outside the boundaries of your current perceptions. Feel free to use this podcast to start your own conversation by sharing it with friends, on social media, in your blog, or even in your own podcast. And as always, live the adventure of pushing your own edge. It's the most amazing adventure there is.